In today's episode of Ancient Giant Mysteries, we jump into the giants of Sardinia. This island off the coast of Italy is a very beautiful island full of wonder and ancient history. But it is also a place surrounded by strange legends and mystery. Many don't know this, but Sardinia used to be populated with real giants. I'm not just talking about people who were tall like 6'5". No, I mean actual giants, from 8 feet all the way up to 12 feet and even taller. Many of the elders who are still alive on the island till this day have stories of themselves or people that they know stumbling upon giant bones, not to mention curious megalithic structures all around the island called giants' tombs. That's right. The remains of giants have been found under churches, in farmers' fields, and of course in the remains of the ancient giant tombs themselves. Over 20,000 ancient ruins and mounds are all scattered throughout the island. In the center of the region we have the massive Lost City. According to the ancient history of this island, this castle was the stronghold of a great seafaring empire which was ruled by 10 giant kings. In this video we will cover the eyewitnesses who held the giant bones in their hands and the cover-up that residents claim has occurred as a result of these findings. So buckle up, sit down, take a deep breath and get comfortable as we dive into the giants of Sardinia. The stories told by the older folks are very specific. They said the bones belonged to giants, not just tall people, but enormous beings. This man here, his name is Luigi. He has a story of finding giants' bones when he was a kid, and it all happened quite by accident. One day, Luigi and his friend were out playing in the fields as kids did back then. They were running around in the hills having a great time. Suddenly a nasty rainstorm erupted. The downpour started. Luigi, in order to get out of the rain, ran over and found shelter in some ancient ruins that were up in the hillside. The rain was roaring down so hard that in order to not get completely soaked, he squeezed through an opening between the dilapidated slabs of rock. Once inside, he realized that he had stumbled upon an enormous mummified skeleton. The sheer size would have been scary. This thing was gigantic. They measured it, and it was about 10 feet tall. For Luigi, finding this mummy just proved what his grandfather had told him about giants inhabiting the island. The stories and legends were all true, and the proof was lying on the ground right in front of him. Well, the news of the giant skeleton spread throughout the town, and eventually the authorities came and took the body away. Not only did they take the skeleton, but they also destroyed what remained of the ruins and scattered the debris in the nearby fields. Whispers turned into excited chatter. People traveled for miles to see the bones themselves, but the people in charge weren't happy. This wasn't a discovery they wanted everyone to know about. This woman here grew up in Sardinia, working with her father on the farm where they would plough the fields. Every so often, out of the soil would appear large bones. She would ask her father, what kind of animals do they belong to? Her father would tell her it was bones of the ancient giant race that used to rule over the island many thousand years ago. She has seen massive giant skulls and enormous human leg bones, giant tombs that were close by to where her family was raised, displaying the tremendous architectural abilities of this Nuraghi civilization. Her family told her how the giants were buried inside. She says that as more giant bones were found, the news spread all over town. Eventually, men in suits saying they worked for the government showed up. They went to the villages and told everyone to be quiet. The bones, they said, had to be taken away. For everyone's own good, they claimed. The villagers were scared. They were told the bones were fake, bad for tourism, a threat to peace. They were told to keep quiet, to forget what they saw. Some people refused. They argued and begged for the truth, but they were threatened. Their jobs were at risk. The safety of their families was hinted at but not promised. What could they do? One by one they went silent. This man here grew up in Sardinia. He too has a story about discovering giant bones. When he was young he was working in a small church called St. Anastasia, doing some excavation in the basement, when lo and behold, while digging down, they unearthed massive bones. These bones were unusual because of how enormous they were. He personally found 2 giant skeletons. They measured the length of the skeletons, and both of them were over 10 feet tall. The bones were confiscated, sent to the municipal archives, and have since disappeared and have never spoken, or he was told to keep his mouth closed and to never speak about it again. They called him crazy and threatened him. but he swears that he held the giant bones in his hand. The femur bone of the largest giant was so long that, if placed one end on the ground, the enormous thigh bone came up past his hip. A person with a femur that long would stand somewhere between 10 and 11 feet tall. There are dozens of other local residents that have stories like these. It seems Sardinia was indeed the place the ancient giants fled to, descendants of the Nephilim driven out of the Holy Land by Joshua, Caleb, and King David. The escaping giants sailed to Sardinia and made it their new kingdom. In fact, on one of the pillars in ruins in Sardinia is an ancient inscription that says, quote, "We are the Canaanites. We are those who fled from the face of Joshua the robber." There is a documentary about these giants on YouTube by Timothy Alberino. He goes into further details. I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe at once, and we will see you next time right here on Ancient Giant Mysteries.